Good morning. Good morning. I'm so happy. I think I skipped my show last month because I was sending my son back to college and I was like, you know what? This is mom chat. So it means that I'm supposed to be with my baby. So we skipped last month so that we could take Tay back to college. And so I'm just so thankful that we were able to, even though we took a month off, come back in September. We're going to be talking about school and going back to school. And I got some moms and some teacher moms on here. And so I'm so excited for that. We're going to give people a little bit of an opportunity to get in and view, get our numbers up a little bit. But my name is Jennifer Bibb. I currently reside in Rochester, New York, with my husband Timothy and my three kids, London, Tay, and Judah. And Tay is our college student, and he's at Howard University. And so I feel like every time I send him off to college, it's like something is missing from our home. So I kind of miss my boy, but I'm excited for him to go live his life. So I'm so excited to have my moms on here with me today. My friend Mary, me and her met in Chick-fil-A when our children were babies, and we've just been friends ever since that moment. Me and her, and so that's been, oh man, that's probably been like 16 years, right, Mary? I don't know. I think that's
Yeah,
yeah,
16 or more, because we
Um,
just London and Reagan were babies.
Yes. So we have known each other for quite a long time. I have Miss Broom here, Miss Sarah Broom. She is my son's teacher when we first moved to Rochester, New York. And so I met her as I've been here, and I love her. And then Kenya, I know Kenya from back in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and she's another mom teacher. And so I just appreciate all you guys coming on my show today. I want to give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves, tell me a little bit about you. And before I do that, though, it's like fall. Everybody appreciate fall? Do you guys? I just
Love
want to know,
fall.
do you
Love
guys
fall.
candy corn?
Yes.
You and your candy corn.
Because I've been getting a lot of candy corn hate all season. It has already started, so I need to make sure I have some candy corn warriors on here. I don't know. Do I?
You
Okay.
do. I like it.
All right. I will start with you. How I see you on my screen. So, Mary, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mary Carter. My background is actually as a pediatric oncology nurse, but life took some turns and I became a homeschool mom 14 years ago. My husband, Aaron, and I have 5 kids. We have one that's grown, one I call my God's greatest wedding gift. She was 5 years old when I met her daddy, and that was 23 years ago. And so I have one grandson, and then we have 4 kids together, one that we just graduated from our homeschool last year, a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old. We've also fostered over the years. So we've done a combination of homeschool, public school, private school. I've taught other people's kids, but it's always a journey, and we there's no one right way. So we've done lots of different pathways.
All right, Miss Broom, introduce yourself.
All right, I am Sarah Broom. My background is in education. Over 20 years ago, I got my degree in education and then worked in different schools. I worked in Rochester City School District and another upstate district, and then went into homeschooling as well. So never thought that I would, but once my kids became of age, I was like, I can't send them on a bus to school. So we homeschooled for about 6 years, and then we took the private school route. And so I joined my kids at Finney. All 4 of them are there. I have 4 children from 9 years old to 15 years old. And we get in the car and go to school together every day. So.
All right. And you know what? I did not know you homeschooled your kids. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Miss Kenya.
Hello. I feel like I have been in the education field ever since I was a teenager. Like my mom had a daycare and she was big on teaching kids. So I had to be able to follow her lesson plans for the daycare. So I just feel like I've been in a long time for the education field. But now I have joined my two kids at the charter school that we're at, the arts-based school here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I have been teaching kindergarten at this school for 2 years. And so now we get to connect and we get to be at the same institution, but not on the same campus. But it's a great thing. And so, yeah. And I have a husband who I have been married to for 11 years, and he is the best thing. And I have two little girls who are 10. Kennedy is 10, and I have Miss Daya, who is 6. And I say Miss Daya because she is Miss Daya. And I have a bonus son who is 20, and he will be 21 soon.
Well, I love that. And I love you guys, all your bios and getting to meet you and kind of talk to you a little bit more today. This is our September, like back to school month. You know, we're going to be talking about different levels of education. And I wanted to make sure I had a public school mom, teacher, a private school mom, teacher, and a homeschool mom, teacher, because you know, education is a must, but learning is a spectrum. And so every mom has to make a decision that what we want to see for our kids. And for me, I tell everybody that because of 2020, I used to be a homeschool mom. So because of 2020, I used to be a homeschool mom too. But my kids have been they were in public school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, all the way until the pandemic, which everybody had to do.
Yes.
Everybody became homeschoolers. And then when we moved, I sent them into private school, and they have been here at Charles Finney private school since we moved here. And so I think that's an important thing, because as moms, you know, we all have to make the right decision for what we think is best for our kids, and we have to know our children. And so it's kind of important to know your value system, why you want to do certain things or why you feel. And I want to empower some moms today to be able to do that. But when I start, I want to know you guys is maybe some of your morning routine for your kids. How do you get up and pumping in the morning with the babies? How do you keep them ready and willing to go? So I want to start with you, Mary. What's the morning routine for you and the kiddos?
Well, we try to get up consistently in the morning, and we've always had what we call morning meeting. One of the advantages of not having to get on a bus is that we don't have to be out the door exactly at a certain time. But I have found that how you start your morning sets the tone for the day. So I'll let them come down in their jammies and meet on the couch at a certain time. And we have morning meeting, and we do a devotion, and we talk about what we're going to do that day. And then we pray together, and then we have breakfast. And I think, and even when we had kids that were in school, we tried to touch base in the morning. I tried to have, contact with my kids first thing in the morning, and always start our day with prayer. And I wanted my children to be prayed for before they started their day.
I love that. Kenya, what's your morning routine?
Oh, man. Morning routine is I have to first get myself together before I start connecting with them, just so I can get my mind together. And then we just get ourselves together. We make sure I encourage them to have a great day, and they are covered in blood, and we go by our day. But sometimes it's a little rocky, but sometimes, like she said, like the way you start your morning is the way your day is going to go. So I always try to calm down before we go out the door, so everyone can have a great day at school. But sometimes it's chaotic. I'm not gonna tell a story, but sometimes it's like, oh, it's smooth sailing. Like everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing and everything. That's why I say Miss Daya is Miss Daya.
Oh man, Miss Broom, what's your morning routine?
Well, I would say when we were homeschooling, it was a much peaceful, slower morning. It now pretty much becomes a mad dash to get to the car. Like, let's go. This is the time we need to be in the car. We're after this time. Get in the car. But I feel like once we're in the car, we do have a 20-minute drive. And so that time we go over what's going to be going on during the day. I asked one of them to pray. So we do try to settle once we're in the car. But yeah, before we hit the car, it's get in the car. It's crazy.
Listen, same. Now, I must say, I'm not a morning person. So I'm like, I'm always dragging out the bed because I'm not a morning person. But the alarm goes off at 6:15. And I actually call London because I'm like, you're old enough now, go wake up your brother, and then I'll be down there in a minute. And so we do that. I did it for Tay. Tay used to wake up everybody because it's like, y'all got to get up. I'm going to get up in a minute. Now that you're old enough to get yourselves up, get up, go eat your breakfast. And then they're not bus riders, they're car riders, because I like for my voice to be the first thing they hear in the mornings, period. So that's why I call them in the morning so they can hear my voice. Then we took them to school, and then we all have a thing, and they now know every morning, and they look for it in the school there. They're like, Mom, hands, because what we do is right before they get out of the car, we all pray for the day. And so it's like a joke now. It's like hands, and so everybody has their hands out so that we can all pray for the day. So I'm curious, any moms who are listening right now, I want to know your morning routine. And just like they've said, you know, how they start the day is kind of how the day will go. So I really do try not to fuss my kids out at the beginning of the day. Happen. I'm gonna be honest. Sometimes
yes.
We're all trying to get to work. We're trying to get to school on time. And the bad thing is, because we live like probably about 20 minutes from the school, and then with traffic, Lord, last year, I believe my kids had so many tardies. I was getting mad, like, you know, messages in my inbox, like, I'm sorry, guys, we're trying to get there. But we are struggling to get everybody out the door. It was rough. It was so rough.
It'd be rough.
All right. So I want to empower some moms today as we are, you know, just talking about the different types of school and why we are doing what we're doing. And so as we started our morning routine, I'm curious what you would tell a mom who might be struggling herself with the morning routine, or might be struggling with just the education system. What are some things you would tell her to kind of inspire her to start her day, or to maybe to bring some joy into that? Listen, some of us, now that we have kids in school, we still might be dealing with our own past with school and our own past with education. And if we've never been able to rectify some of that, school is draining for everybody. So I want to know, like, how would you talk to some moms today that might be struggling to create a routine for their kids? Miss Broom, you start.
I think it has to be individualized. I have two boys that are 18 months apart. I thought that they were going to be the same kid. And one of them is the reason why we left homeschooling and decided to go back to school, because that's what he really, really needed. So even with starting the day, if you know what each of your children need, that's really what it is. One needs something, the other one doesn't need it. And so you have to recognize in each one what they need. My son the one that led us to seek out other schooling options. He's a bright kid, but he was really struggling with homeschooling. And so we started looking into what benefits a classroom would have for him. And so that was really why we made the changes that we needed to make.
Oh, but you know what? I think it's so important for you to know your kids, because even 2020, everybody listening, 2020 is when I homeschooled. So I'm a homeschool mom. I'm going to take that. But Judah and Tay were not doing well during that transitional period. And so when we were moving in the middle of the year, one of the reasons that I decided to come to do private was because I needed them to be in a school setting. So I think that's important. London was doing great, but Judah and Tay were not doing great. So it's like, I got to figure something out, because I need for them to be able to go into a school setting. But okay, Mary, tell me.
Well, one thing I should say is that everybody even those of us that homeschooled in 2020, that wasn't normal homeschooling. And so I had children that also struggled during that time, because we don't homeschool in a bubble. We actually have a co-op group, and we go one day a week. So my kids feel accountable to other peers and adults, and they have to do lots of group projects and presentations. So we get to have that classroom aspect. And they do sports, and they have music and art and different things. And so I have to say that your boys were not alone in that time period, because even my homeschooled children who lost their volleyball, lost their all their activities, it was hard. And so like Sarah said, we've reassessed every year. And you have to do that because, like she said, every child is unique and every parent is unique. And then the family culture that you want to cultivate is also unique. And so that really does take individualized consideration. And like I said, we've done a combination. I mean, there's been years when we've had some in private school, some in homeschool, and some in public school all at one time. It's a little chaotic, and I don't necessarily recommend that, but it's what the Lord had for us in that season. And so we have always had to figure out not just what exactly what Sarah said, what worked for my older children did not work the same with our younger ones. And I think just realizing the individuality of both your children and yourself, and that there's not one right way, and to give yourself that grace that we have to figure out not only who our children are and what their styles are, but we have to figure out what our styles are.
Yes, who we are.
That's important.
Yes, yes. I think it's so important too, because that was and 2020 was unique. And really, to be honest, I know for especially you, Ms. Broom, and you, Kenya, you're inside the school system right now, and you're having to assess that kids' needs are so different right now, and that we're going to see that fall out for the next several years, because we talk about it in the mental health field too. What we're watching from 2020 that stem from it is just a shift all the way around. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in there, but you have to know, and you have to give yourself the grace, and you do have to know yourself, what you need, and then assess your children individually. But go ahead, Kenya.
So I know that Kennedy and Day are two different people, and whenever, like you all said, when the 2020 came, Kennedy she was struggling. We experienced tears. I'm teaching, she's learning on the computer, so it was like a whole big thing. And then she just shut completely down and didn't want to do none of the work. So it's kind of like whenever all that happened, she kind of like fell behind, and I was trying to catch her up, but in the meantime getting frustrated because I'm like, why don't you get it? But it's like she's not getting it because she has checked out. And so whenever she went back to school, it was kind of like, okay, let's get the ball back rolling. But I just know that I have to be her advocate. I have to know like how my child learns. I have to assess her myself just to make sure that she's okay. So when she do get these assessments, it's like, okay, how can we help you? And then we sit down and have conversations versus me fussing. Like, oh God, why are you not getting it? Like, come on, like, look at it. And she's looking at it, but she just like, I just don't get it. And so whenever, like you said, you had to assess yourself. Like I had to be like, okay, listen, you're the teacher. You need to get out of teacher mode and you need to get into mommy mode. So mommy mode and teacher mode is very different for me. I have established that, and I have been trying, and I have established like, okay, when can I get into teacher mode and when it's mommy mode? And she would tell me like, mommy, I'm frustrated and you're frustrated. It's not going to get done. And so if we're both frustrated, then it's not going to happen. So I'm learning how to step back from being teacher and being mommy. And so whenever I do that, I am in a better place. I experience tears because I'm like, she's going to get it, but it's just like she is slowly coming and she's slowly getting it back from 2020, and we're now in 2023. And I have to be patient with her, but I also have to be her advocate. And I know that we put her in a school where it's arts based, so it's kind of like everything around arts. She loves to sing, she loves to dance, she loves to do all the things. So now we're coming up with songs like how she can learn different things and how she can remember things. And my littlest one, I don't know if that's going to work for her. We're trying it out. So we're just trying to see if we'll have a charter school arts-based kid, and will we have a public school kid that will thrive and do better in another setting, because we just don't know at this point. But I just tell myself I am her advocate, and I'm going to speak for what she needed. If she needs help with these standardized tests that they have, that she struggles with and have anxiety for, then I'm going to be her advocate to get her help. So just always, moms, just don't be afraid. Don't be in denial about your baby's not learning and not catching on. It's okay. And just always be your baby's advocate.
Yes, I love that. And taking shame off the table. There are
Mhm.
many of us who didn't do great in school. We might not have did great in school ourselves, or we might have had undiagnosed learning disabilities
Yes.
too. And then
Yes.
when we're watching our children, if we have this expectation for them to be something that we weren't, that is shame based. And
Yes.
it's like you have to take shame off the table. And when you're advocating for your child, to do what's best for them. I do want to say this, and then I want to go back to this mommy mode versus teacher mode, because I like that. I want y'all to kind of talk about that. However, I have 3 children. My one son started school when he was 4 years old because he had just turned 4 and then he turned 5, because that birthday cutoff. And so for him, he wasn't ready. So I probably was a little bit anal retentive with Tay. I think, that first time mom stuff.
Firstborn.
Oh my goodness. So I had that boy in speech therapy, going, like all the stuff, everything. Like, I know people probably like, girls, this child is okay. Just, you need to chill. You're not okay, mom. That's the problem, And so, but what I noticed about him is that he didn't do well in kindergarten at all. As a matter of fact, he did so poorly that, of course, nobody's going to hold your child back. That's not what they were doing. They're just like, he's not ready. He's not ready to progress. So then, but he'll be fine in first grade. So we got to first grade, and I told his first grade teacher, I said, you watch him because I'm watching him, and I will not have him just doing middle of the road just because you guys are ready to progress him forward. And so with that being said, we watch. And you know what? Ultimately, I held him back in the first grade because they did not want me to hold him back. It was against all their rules. I went all the way to the top and was like, I need this child to be able to actually progress and not keep going middle of the road because I'm seeing something here. He's struggling. He's just not mature enough. And so we did hold him back in the first grade. And you know what? That kid was on honor roll, National Honor Society. He did good. He's just my one. He's a little bit of a strong-willed child. So he's my one that's always, I was up in middle school, sat in the classroom. I'll do whatever it takes, But then London came along. She's never really had a struggle like Tay. And then Judah, and so knowing each individual child and what they need and advocating for them, taking shame off the table and being able to do what you think is best for your child is so important. I cannot stress that enough. It is so important. So even being held back was not a deal breaker. It was like, this is what was best for him. And now here we are all these years later, he's at Howard University and he's doing fine. He's doing just fine. So if I can encourage any mom, if you're watching your kid and you're afraid of, their development, or you're watching and you feel like they're not going the way you think is best, advocate for them and do what you know is best for them. But I wanted to go back to this mommy mode versus teacher mode. Mary, since you're always home with the kids, do you find there's a separation there?
Yeah. Well, I find I have to take that. That is something my husband has said to me over the years, that you need to be able to be in a place where you can separate your roles. And it was funny when the kids were much younger, I remember being in the room and doing something with one of them, the older one, and one of the younger ones came up and said, "Oh, mommy, you want to play something?" And the older one said, No. We learn with mommy, we play with daddy.
Oh.
And I was like, what? I can play too. But I realized that what I was doing was kind of making everything, and it is our role as parents to kind of learn lessons and through everything that they do, but I was starting to and again, it was, how you are with that oldest, you're a little more intense about things. And I had to realize that maybe I need to take a step back and play and not just make everything about what can we learn here. And I had to think that through. It's interesting because I'm actually a second generation homeschooler. My parents homeschooled me. We were military. We lived in a lot of different areas all over the world. Some places were more remote than others. But my dad's degree was in counseling and my mom was a homeschool teacher. So to me, everything in life was always a lesson. And then we talked about our feelings about it. So I had to learn to find that balance of that my parents were able to strike at some point, where I didn't have to make everything about a lesson, and I just needed to enjoy the time with my kids. And sometimes, just like Kenya said, I had to kind of step outside and realize that my most important role in their life is their mom. And that's something that nobody else can take that role. I intend for them to have other teachers, and we're in, like I said, we're involved in groups where there's other adults speaking into them, and I have them take classes in the community college, and then I'm preparing them to go off to college or wherever they're going to go. They're always going to have somebody else that they're going to be training under in some capacity, but they will only have one mom.
Yeah.
And if I lose touch with that role, then I remember my husband saying to me one time, you'll be her mom forever. You're only her teacher for, this designated time period.
Yeah.
And what's more important? And would you rather have her have, the most intense teacher 20 years from now when she was whatever grade we were in at the time? Or do you still want her to have this bond with her mother?
Yeah.
Because that's lifetime.
I love that. That's really sweet. Miss Broom, how do you separate it? The kids don't call you Miss Broom, do they?
Well, when we were homeschooling, I remember one day we were probably close to lunchtime, and I think it was my daughter, said to me, "You haven't even hugged us yet today." And that was for her, that teacher mom role. Like, she was like, "Mommy is the one that's hugging us and cuddling us, but you've been in this teacher role all day. You're not even taking time to hug us and snuggle." And so I really had to pay attention to that, because coming into homeschooling, I had already taught in the public schools. And so I had this mindset of reaching benchmarks and checking things on the boxes, like making sure things were done. And I had to really make sure that I would, set aside certain times to like take off that hat and be mom, even during the day. But my kids joke now, and just Mary was just saying that her dad was a counselor. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
In our house, I'm a teacher, my husband is a counselor. And so my kids are living, and they joke around with us. Like, when I plan vacations, they're like, decide whether or not it sounds like a field trip or a vacation, because they think I'm always trying to teach them things. And they're like, "Mom, this, I'm like, we're going to take a trip to New York City and we're going to visit this and this and this." And like, "Mom, that's a field trip. That's not a vacation." And I'm like, no. So
it's a vacation. Yeah. That's funny, because we're a feelings family too. And so even though, Tim is the pastor, we're pastors, but I'm the counselor. And so sometimes the kids are like, just the other day, Tim was like giving London like this depth of lesson about soccer, right? And so then him and Judah started talking about football, and Judah was like, "Dad, I just want to watch the game. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to watch it." I already heard what you said to London about giving her best. I just want to watch the game. So that was so funny, because yes, you're a feelings family. Let's talk about it. Let's break everything down. So that, I love that. Yeah. How do you make sure that your child gets their needs met when they're in those settings? Because I think, like, in a public school setting, there's a bigger classroom size, but sometimes there's individual programs sometimes for their needs that you might not have in homeschool, or you might have to reach out for in private schools, things like that. So how have you, Mary, made sure that if your kids had an individual, any individual needs that needed to be met, how have you made sure that they got that?
Like I said, just reassessing. And I've had to, I unfortunately made quite the guinea pig out of my oldest, and kind of tried to check off all the boxes, and then had to step away and then realize, what's the most significant boxes to check off, and what is just me getting through a checklist. And so I can feel accomplished, or, validated almost. Well, this is what we did. And so I've had to do that. And if that's very different with each child, and like I said, we've had children in the public school, especially with our fostering, and we've had to take advantage of meeting with the guidance counselors and figuring out. So we've had to do that role. And then at home, I've had to learn, that's the beauty of homeschooling, how to tailor it. And had to figure out, okay, just because this curriculum that we're a part of, and fortunately, the group that we're in, they say all the time, the mom is the teacher. We're just tutors. You tailor things to how it works for your child. And so I have to do that at the beginning of the year. And then as we go along, if I see her struggling, I can say, well, maybe we don't need to have, maybe we can change the assignments differently. Maybe we can change some of the topics of these things. Maybe we can change our approach to these things. Maybe I can figure out what is going to suit the need of this child. I have one that's very, very, very skilled at rote memorization and languages. And she was able to take Latin all the way through and add Spanish to it because she can memorize great amounts of material. And we had to reach the point with the next one who's more, she's the one that wants to go to culinary school. She's, her brain is in some ways similar, but in some ways very different. And I had to step away and say, okay, well, which program is really going to benefit her? And so what can we change? She doesn't really need to go so hardcore in this. She doesn't want to go into like a science-based career. And so how can I redirect that, which has been something I have to kind of change up as we go sometimes, but that's the benefit of homeschooling.
And so when you are, let me ask you about what curriculum do you use? So if you have a mom that's like, I'm thinking about it, do you have like a baseline curriculum that you use?
We're currently part of a group called Classical Conversations.
Okay.
We meet once a week. It takes a classical approach to education. There are classical brick and mortar schools as well. But this is a homeschool curriculum where we meet once a week and they do their classroom work together. So in high school, they do debates and presentations and different stuff like that. And then we work on it at home. You choose your own math program and you can kind of tailor things. The curriculum comes with or incorporates Latin as its primary other language, assuming that gives you a base for other languages that you can learn. But you can change it up however you want. And so like for my daughter who wants to go to culinary school, I said, okay, you've had enough Latin to understand what we wanted to gain from that. She wants to study French patisserie. So I enrolled her in an online French class and that's what she's doing. So it's not hardcore one way. And I think that's something that every homeschool parent needs to know, that you have to do what works for your kid and there's no one right way.
And so at the end of the year, what do you do? Where do you have to turn in test score? Like, what do you have to do to make sure that it shows that you have taught your kid this year?
Every state is different. So if you have a parent, a parent that's considering homeschooling, they need to figure out, I always encourage them to reach out, find some local homeschoolers, talk to other homeschool families, that you need to find out what the requirements of your state is.
Okay.
Law. So like in North Carolina, I am a registered non-public school. We have our own school ID. I have to do that to be registered with the state. Our kids are officially enrolled in that. And then you'll remember from being in North Carolina that we do have the state requirement of an end of grade exam, and all students across the state have to do that. And so we do that. And I'm actually grateful for that. I use that for my kids to get prepared for standardized testing. And so we do that every year, but it's different. I've homeschooled in Georgia and Texas and North Carolina. And then I grew up homeschooling all over, and my parents had to do different requirements. Sometimes you had to send things in, sometimes you didn't. It just depends on the state that you're a part of.
Okay, so each state has different requirements. Okay, that's cool to know. All right, Kenya, how do you make sure that your babies, now you're in, there's a charter school and then you got this arts-based school, how you make sure they're meeting their benchmarks or like that they're getting their needs met?
Now that I have separated the two, I let her get in tutoring sessions, and I make sure that she gets everything that she needs in school, while when she come home, I give her what she needs at home. Mm-hmm. So in school, we do the pullouts, like we getting her back to where she needs to be. But Kennedy, my oldest, Kennedy, she can memorize, like if you give her like scripts, songs, anything. So now it's kind of like, okay, Kennedy, let's make up a song. let's make up a song. Let's try to figure out how we can do this X, Y, and Z. So timetables was a big thing for her for not, she just could not memorize it. She just could not get it. But now we're making up songs and my girl is getting the timetable. We is trying to excel in that area. And if we set it up like if she's reading something, if we set up like a script or anything like that, anything that's kind of like acting or anything, I make her read like she's acting. She do all the sound effects, anything. I tell her when you do the standardized test, let's act like you're acting, like just read it and then put your own little twist to it. And then, just get these questions answered. So we do that type thing, and then tutoring. And my youngest, we just started with her. She's in kindergarten, so we're very, very different from Kennedy when this comes from learning. And she likes to do it, and then if she knows it, she knows it. And it's kind of like with Kennedy, with the whole 2020 thing, set her all the way back. So now just tutoring and us coming up with different concepts at home, me and daddy being on the same page when we're doing things at home, versus if she comes to the school with me and she come home with dad, it's the same thing. Like we just keeping it consistent all around the board, and we're trying to stay consistent with her instead of like lagging off, because at the school that she's at, it's no homework. So we create the homework for her, and we create things to do at home to help her grow and help her do things. So tutoring and just staying consistent at home is how we help her meet her benchmark, and staying connected to the teacher and communicating with the teacher and making sure that she's aware of how Kendi is doing at home, and we're checking in on how Kendi is doing in school. And just having a relationship with the teacher is always great as well when you're trying to meet benchmarks and trying to get her to where she needs to go.
Having a relationship with your kids' teacher is probably one of the best things that you can do. Probably for private, having a relationship with your children's teacher is really important. But also, I know most public schools offer certain types of tutoring. They offer certain types of things, especially if your child is not reaching that benchmark. So I think it's going to the guidance counselor at school, or going to the administration, just to reach out if you're not aware of what is available for your student. So just making yourself aware of what is available to the child, what is free programming, sometimes what you need to pay for. I know that for each of my kids in elementary, I definitely had to pay for a tutor, but it was a teacher, because I didn't have a lot of money to pay for the tutor, but it was a teacher that I invited to be on today, but she was too busy. She had some overlapping scheduling, and I had a private tutor, another teacher, that for my kids in I forget, 4th or 5th grade. That was really helpful. So just knowing what you have available to you is so important. Ms. Broom, how do you make sure in the private school setting that your kids are reaching their benchmarks, and how do you know what's available to them? Even because I know Finney is in like Penfield area, so sometimes there's things that the public school might have available to them that might not be available for Finney. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think the biggest thing is just knowing the teachers, that they know your face, they know how to communicate with you, the best way to do so when there is a problem. And I would say there is, and it has changed throughout the years, the way that you get any type of extra supports in private schools. It's this whole tangled thing that can sometimes be messy. But if your child needs to go through the route of referral to special education or anything like that, it does go through the private schools, the district that it lies in. Now that has changed, I think, within the last 10 years. It used to be that your child, if you were, for example, in Rush Henrietta and you sent your child to a private school in Penfield, Rush Henrietta would provide the services for that child. But now they're just billed for that child and they don't send the services. So Penfield is responsible to service the children in there's other private schools in Penfield. So they service all of those. And it does get, it can get messy at times.
And so what do you think would be the best way to ask for that help? Do you think it would be best to go to the administration at the private school or teacher? Like, what would you say to a parent?
It all depends on the school and what things they have already set in place.
Okay.
So for example, at Finney, my new position there is academic intervention teacher. And so what will happen is if there are red flags, a teacher flags you, a parent flags you, someone is saying this child is struggling in a certain area, then they will come to myself, or there's a reading specialist. And so we will spend some time documenting what we're doing, what interventions are being put in place, and are they successful or not. So it's almost like a tiered intervention. If this is not working, we try something else. And if it gets to a point where, you know, they're making little progress, then they will be referred to the Committee of Special Education. Parents can push that along faster, but in the classroom and in the school, we have to have a lot of documentation to present a child to go through that process.
Yeah, and so I guess too, it's really important as a parent to kind of know what is going on with your child, and so that you can help push that along. Because I know, you know, we do a lot. Winston-Salem just came out. I just was looking at it. They just came out with a report card for schools, and I know that's been a big thing. Each school has gotten a rating, and there are so many Fs across the board for these schools, and it has caused an uproar to a lot of people. And I feel so bad, because then I watch people be like, parents, where are you? You know, so I've been seeing some of that feedback, like, parents, where are you? We cannot do this without your help. And then I was thinking, you know, I don't even know that these schools needed to be graded right now because of what we just went through with this pandemic. I don't even know if that was a fair assessment to grade these schools right now. Not when there were parents who were working full time, who are mentally ill, who are trying to take care of kids themselves. There were so many things that happened in the span of the last 3 years that there's just a fallout across the board. But I've been watching it, and I'm watching people like want parents to have involvement. But can you imagine, if you're working full time, if you're a single parent and you have 5 kids, how hard it is to like have uber involvement into whatever they're going, you know, whatever going on with them at school. Now, that's just a reality for some people. If you're a single mom here and you have multiple children in a school setting with different teachers, it's just so hard. And I think my heart actually goes out to the parents that are having a struggle with that. If you're watching your kid suffer right now, or you're watching them educationally struggle while you're also trying to work, trying to keep your bills paid, trying to do that, I would say having a good village is so important for you, and being able to create a relationship with the administration, with the teacher, making sure that your kid has the proper supports, because that is just, and I know we've talked about it already, advocating for your baby, making sure that you know what's going on, but even a slight bit of awareness of like, who is their teacher? How do I make sure I can get to these parent-teacher conferences? And even if you can't, how do I make sure I can talk to the teacher then? Because if you're working and you can't get to a conference, email the teacher. Make sure that you have, even if it's minimal, make sure you have the right things that you need to be able to stay involved with your child during this transition of the school year, because the school year is transitioning all year. You know, like there's a different period, benchmarks, it's all this stuff. And so when I saw the Winston-Salem Forsyth County School District report card be released, it kind of touched my heart a little bit. I'm like, man, this is sad. But in school choice, it just so happened that each choice, when I lived there, I had my kids at certain schools that I decided to send them to because of school choice. And all those were like, I think they had A, B, there was an A, B, and C grade. And I was like, oh, so the schools that I fought for them to get in were the schools that were actually doing well. But I think it's important to note like the pressure that's on parents, the pressure that's on teacher, and just this fallout that we're going through all the way around. And we will be in it, I think, for the next several years of what has happened to our children and to our adults from this extended isolation, this COVID stuff. So Kenya, you look like you're going to say something.
I got something. Yes. So at the school that I teach at, we don't do letter grades. And I think that's so helpful for our children mental. It's helpful for mommy's mental. And so we do narratives. And so what the narratives does is we have to write up a narrative of what the child is doing, how the child is succeeding. It's not like, you know, how you see the F. But in the narrative, it just states that, hey, your baby is working hard. She's doing exactly what she needs to be doing. We just need to do X, Y, and Z to get her where she needs to go. not so much of an F, but kind of like encouraging and kind of like giving you tools to help you with your child. So the letter grades and the narratives really helps in the Hex household. It helps in many children lives. Like I have seen parents say, oh my goodness, narratives are so great, versus I'm looking at me and my child sitting down to have a conversation about F's, D's, and C's, and why you're not making an A, whenever I can sit down with my baby with the narrative and read to her what her teacher has said about her. She's great. She's awesome. But we're just going to work with her to get where she needs to be. So I think that letter grading and all that, like that's what helps. In the charter school that I teach at is so helpful for and encouraging for my baby. I know it helps her because I know they are, when one of the youngest one probably could take it more than the oldest one, like the grades. But I know the oldest one couldn't take that. Like she would have to, she has to see the narrative, and she, if she's not doing well, she's encouraged that she's doing the best that she can. That's the best that she can, because she can't. She don't know the numbers. She don't know the letters. So I think that is more encouraging to get those type things also. And then as a school, like you say, they're getting bad grades.
Yes.
Like just tell them like what can we do? But it's, at this point, like we said, we've been in the pandemic. All these things been happening. It's a lot of things that's on our plate. And I have such a testimony about me teaching and doing mommy and all that type things that it's just it's a lot. It's a lot. So grades are
Now the school year just started, but I'm curious how you guys, and what are some things that you would do to encourage moms to, or your kids to like have their best year? What are some of the things that you've done in the past, or that you do that you do during the year to kind of, when school is fresh, you got your fresh book bag, you got your fresh shoes, you got, your fresh everything. And then as the year goes on, it's like papers become crumpled at the bottom of the book bag, like it becomes hard. So what are some things that you guys would tell for your kids or a parent to help motivate them to keep this school year going? What are some things that you would like to tell us, to keep the school year going and keep it fresh on these kids? Ms. Broom, you start.
Yeah, I with my students and my own children, I'm always very clear that it's not always the brightest kid in the classroom that's the most successful. It's the ones that are persevering and continuing to work hard.
Yes.
And with my own kids, we do grades at Finney, and I have different feelings both ways. But I will always tell them, that is not what matters. Your heart is what matters. That's what the Lord looks at. And so if you know that you've put that effort in and you've done what you needed to do, then that's what matters. And that's what mom and dad care about. And that's what the Lord's looking at. And that's it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Mary, tell me how you guys keep it fresh all year long.
We have no school times.
Oh.
We do have times where and my husband's actually very good at that, because I can get entrenched in the we must do this. And I think one of the primary reasons my husband enjoys homeschooling, besides the fact that we were a former military family, and that was a beautiful pathway for us with all of the times that my husband was deployed and gone and stuff. But it's kind of the same idea, is that there are times when he says, we're going to go do this as a family. We're going to go do this and he's good at saying, he's good at doing that. At saying, I know we're going to take a second. Let's just have family movie night, or let's read together. And sometimes stepping away, because it's like when you get so narrowed in and you're entrenched in this one routine, or all you see is the to-do list, and all your kids see is their assignment checklist, and all they see is all of these things, requirements that they feel pressured of. And you need to zoom out and see the big picture. And so that is what we try to do. And like I said, I'm not as good at it as my husband, but that's why I'm glad he's here, for us to say, we're going to remember what our priority is, and we're going to refocus on our family. We're very family focused. And so we're going to say, we're going to take a break. And there's been times when I have an oldest that sounds very similar to Kenya's. And she was one of the reasons why we ended up homeschooling, is because I did not want to letter grade for her. There was a period of time I needed her to not see herself evaluated by a number or a letter. I needed to do, I absolutely love that, what you said about that. And that's what that child needed, because her tendency can be, she comes quite honest. I'm also an oldest girl, and we tend to be that way. And we need someone to tell us that is not who you are. That is not what defines you, just like Sarah said. And let's refocus on what we know to be true, what we know to be good, what we know to be beautiful. Let's refocus on that. And I just think that's really important to do, to remember, to pull out the big picture. You know, just like what you were saying, it's not just from a teacher perspective, but a parent perspective. And let's have that eternal perspective for our children. And it really doesn't necessarily matter some of these assignments, but it will matter their mental and spiritual health. That will impact them for the rest of their lives. And it will impact your grandkids if we can't teach them how to step away and take a breath and find the peace that the Lord has there for them. And so that's what we try to do, is step away from it and reprioritize where we should be.
I love that. And I think remembering, especially for the parents that your kids are in school with a letter grade, one bad grade does not define your child. And I think if you can remember that, it will help you not so badly focus on this F. It will help you be able to kind of pull back, like, okay, let's see what we need to do to get the F up, you know, like to get that F up to a D, and then to get that D up to a C, and then see where we can go with that and see how I can help you. And just remembering not to make the letter grade the focus, but maybe what's behind the letter grade. What's behind that? What supports do we need? And then to keep the year, I'm going to be honest, I think towards the middle of the year, I'm always exhausted. It's like, oh, can summer hurry up? Like, and it's a struggle, you know, to just kind of keep it going. And so then we're all like dragging out of the bed. You know, we've done so well, right? What are we? We're like 2 weeks in though, right? We've done so well. We're like, oh, we're on time. This is amazing. But then I'm like, okay, how do I make sure that I keep it? Because by the end of the last school year, we were so exhausted that once I turned off my alarm, I was like, oh God, I cannot wait for the school year to be over. But I do think it's important. How do you keep it fresh so that it doesn't become a drag? Maybe it just is, you know, that sometimes life is a drag. So maybe it just is a drag, you know, but maybe there are some things that we can do to make sure that we keep those things fresh, to make sure that we keep the school year at least exciting enough to say, okay, we're going to start this thing and we're going to finish this thing. It's going to be amazing. And I think that starts with routines, maybe doing those small breaks, like you said, Mary, remembering to talk to your kids through, let's talk beyond school numbers and grades. Let's talk about what's good about you. Like you said, Kenya, I think that is a really important way to keep it fresh all year long. And I want to remember that for myself. I do have a child that's in college, and I had to make so many adjustments for all my kids, from Tay in college holding him back, to Judah to London, going to the principal and making her get out of a class that wasn't right for her. To Judah, me and Judah, I went and sat in his classroom last year. I sure did. I went and sat down and was like, now, wait a minute. He's being a little bit chatty. I'm hearing that he's getting into some trouble. Do not be afraid to go up to your kid's school, to know the teacher, to sit in on a class, to do whatever you need to do to make sure that they have a successful school year. I'm very sensitive to my kids and their needs. Right now, my kids go to a school that doesn't have a lot of minorities. So that makes me kind of, I'm gonna be honest, it puts me on I'm a little bit more sensitive about it. Like, now, is he getting in trouble because of this, that, or the third? You know, I'm on the offense. So I went up to the school to make sure that it wasn't what I was maybe initially feeling. You know, when London, she did not pass her third grade EOG. She missed it by 2 points. So for fourth grade, they put her in a learning ready class. Well, really, that was a behavior class. And so she was with all these kids who were not behaving. And she came home crying and she's like, I'm dumb, you know, like, and these are the things that I I had to face for her that I'm like, I went to the school and I'm like, now, wait a minute. There is a problem here that my child, who has never had any type of behavioral issues, they're like, it's not a behavioral class, Mrs. Bell. I'm like, the devil is a lie, because these kids are cursing out the teacher. They're throwing stuff in the classroom. She's told me about it. She's coming home telling me about it. So then what are the things that I had to do? I had to advocate for her. They did switch her out of that class. They did put her in another class, and then she did amazing. For Judah last year, I went and I sat in the class with him because he kept getting all these little marks about his behavior. And you know what I realized? It was not only him, it was him and several other students. And it was, the teacher just didn't have the best control over the classroom. So I ultimately told the teacher, oh, it's not just about Judah, is it? You're struggling too. I see that. And he's like, that I don't know if he took that, how he took that. It didn't matter. But it's like, I'm here. I'm the parent. This is what I'm seeing. I'm going to be honest about that, and doing what I felt was best for him. So if I can encourage any moms today, as you're trying to get through this school year with your kids, for yourself, be as involved as you can be. Get to know your teachers. Take the stigma off some of these grades, the numbers or the letters, and kind of get behind that. Realize that this school year is long for everybody, and do your best to take care of your mental health and to take care of these babies' mental health.
Yes.
I would just add that even taking a mental health day, if you feel like your kids have been pushed to their limit, and we sometimes will schedule one midwinter, like late January or February, sometimes even March, we'll just say, hey guys, we're going to take this Friday off. If you can work hard until we can get this Friday, we're just going to take a day. We're going to go to lunch, or sometimes even like in the past, we've gone to a hotel for the night, and just to change up the scene if they need it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I just say like routines is big, and then like celebrating the highs and the lows, and just always like encouraging them, to do the right thing. But not do the right thing, but just encourage them that they're doing the best that they can. As long as you're doing the best as you can, that it's great. You're doing great. Just encourage them like you're doing great, and then just always like take that time away. Like she said, like take time away. Mental health day. It was time when I first started teaching. I didn't take a mental health day. And I checked out. When I got home, it was like check out. I didn't realize I was doing it. I would just sit on the couch and just sit back and just look at them like, what just happened here? Like, I don't know what's going on. And then my husband was like, do you realize you checked out? And I was like, no, I'm just tired. And so now it's kind of like I have to keep myself, I have to step back, and I have to get a break, and I have to say, okay, from this time to this time, this is what I'm doing before I get my girls. And then when I get my girls, I can be back in mommy mode to do all the things that they do during the week. But it's just like taking time for yourself, taking time for mental health days. If they say they don't feel like going to school, don't make them go to school. It's okay. Just let them stay at home. It's all right for them to stay at home. It's okay for them not to learn all the time. Like Mary said, it's okay. Everything is not a lesson. And I'm one of those parents. Like, I'm like, hey, so what did you learn when we went to this when we in the aquarium? I'm like, read that. And she's like, mommy, do I have to read it? Yes, read it and tell us what it's about. So it just knowing that everything is not a lesson, just try to just reward everything they do and not make everything so teachy all the time. Just make sure they don't have to learn a lesson about everything, I guess. Wow. But my husband is very good, like Mary's husband is. Like, he takes them, he plays with them. They never say that I'm not the mom that don't play with them, but I get it. Like, when they're doing things, they be like, oh, we're gonna ask daddy to do it. And I'm like, no, wait, I can do it. They're like, no, daddy, we're gonna ask daddy to take us outside to ride the scooters.
I don't play. I don't know. I'm not a playful. I don't know. I'm not the play mom. I just was telling my husband this year, they play too much. And so I'm like, you and them kids play too much. I'm not the uber playful person. But I do think it's important to kind of step out and to know, take those breaks. I had perfect attendance when I was in school. I just did. I don't know. I didn't miss a lot of days. And so that's kind of what I also think about kids. I'm like, are you bleeding? Are you dead? Go to school, but I do think it's important to know, they need, as you're individually dealing with your kids, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to have a mental health day. Don't tell London that I'm okay with that, okay? Because I'm like, girl, you are not, go to school. Get up.
It's different for every family.
Yeah, it's different for every family.
but I do think that that's important. Guys, thank you so much for today. Thank you for joining me. We're going to end it in a few minutes. And any mom that's listening here today, I hope you've been able to get some gems. I hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel okay with any decision that you make for your kid, whether it's homeschooling, whether it's private schooling, or whether it's public school. There is benefits to all of it.
Yes.
There is no one right way. And so I'm just so thankful to be able to talk to all you moms today. Thank you for joining me on the show. Thank you guys for joining us today. And y'all have a good Saturday. I'm going to a pumpkin patch or apple farm. I don't know. I'm doing something later today with some of the women's ministry that I lead. So that's exciting. I hope you guys have a beautiful Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.